the Muslim stamp. So we have a community. It's got a masjid. It's got schooling in it, Muslim schooling. What else does that community need, or should it be working towards?
That community needs credible, qualified scholars. That's the foundation. As Franz Rosenthal, the renowned Orientalist, he wrote a book called Knowledge Triumphant. And in that book, he argues and makes a very strong case that Islam is the first and possibly the only knowledge-based civilization in human history. Civilizations were based on race, ethnicity, geography. So the Nilotic civilizations are based on the Nile River Valley. So you have Kush, Nubia, and Egypt, ancient Egypt. They're all rooted in the Nile River Valley. Those civilizations never manifested themselves in another geographical region. And so Muslim civilization is knowledge-based. And because it's knowledge-based, it manifests itself in unique iterations amongst the Arabs, amongst the Turkic people, amongst the Europeans in Andalusia and Bosnia and other places in Europe. It manifests itself amongst the Central Asians. It manifests itself amongst the Malays. It manifests itself in North, West, and East Africa. So the Swahili civilizations in East Africa, the North African Berber Islamic episodes, the West African, Ghana, Songhay, Mali. And so we have to have scholarship. The enslaved population in this country, there were conservative estimate 20% of the slaves were Muslims. We know one of their stories, roots, Kunta Kinte, from this Muslim from West Africa brought here and then beaten out of his name and beaten out of his Islam. We know his story through Alex Haley, one of his descendants. When Alex Haley, his search for his roots ended in Jufaray Island off the coast of Gambia in a Muslim village. We know the story of Ayyub bin Sulaiman. Ayyub bin Sulaiman, Job bin Solomon, the fortunate slave. His biography is the oldest extant work of African American literature. We know the story of Abdurrahman, Ibrahim Abdurrahman, Natchez, Mississippi, prince amongst slaves. We know the story of Umar bin Said. So Muslims were here, it's been documented. But because there were no communities, because there were no learning institutions, Islam, as soon as the importation of Muslim slaves stopped with the abolition of slavery, then the Islamic presence disappeared amongst the African American people. And so knowledge is absolutely critical for the survival and perpetuation, for the prospering and perpetuation of Muslim communities. So we need credible scholars to guide and provide spiritual leadership. At the end of the day, we're a spiritual community. We're not a purely political community. Politics is part of our religion, but the core of our existence is we are a spiritual community. Therefore, we need spiritual leadership and guidance. And so scholars are absolutely essential, and we have to make sure our scholars are receiving compensation and salaries that allow them to be scholars. And they're not driving taxis on the side and driving Uber on the side to be able to take care of their families. So that's what we need, absolutely. And therefore we need seminaries. In addition to colleges and university, we need seminaries that are training scholars and training scholars from a young age. So they memorize Quran. They memorize a lot of our literary heritage. They're very conversant in our poetry. They have a firm grasp on our jurisprudence. And so they've been nurtured. So if you take an example of Azhar, they have the Azhar Ibtidaiya wa I'dadiyya wa Thanawiyya wal Kulliyya. And so we have the equivalent of that. The children that show inclination and promise and are very oriented towards the religion, then we help to train them from elementary school, middle school, high school, university, college level. And so this is absolutely essential for the continued prosperity and the perpetuation of our community.
So we need Muslim scholars in every community. Where did you say we get them? We get them from the seminaries that we found?
We have to establish our seminaries and training schools and madaris. Absolutely. No one else is going to do it.
Okay, so you're not a fan of sending them overseas like you did when you studied in Syria.
Well, we need our own because, that was a phase in the development of the community. And that was the only option we have. But that is not a sustainable model, even based on the politics. Some of us studied in Syria. Syria's gone.
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore. Some of us studied in Yemen with the Habaib. Yemen's gone. Can't do that anymore. Some of us studied in Egypt. Egypt, alhamdulillah, but it's shaky. If you can draw a lot of suspicion being a foreign student of religion and in Egypt right now. And so the options, they shrink and shrink. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, we have now generations here. This is their land. This is their culture. This is their language. And so we need scholars who are not only conversant in the religion, but also conversant in the cultural currents and the intellectual currents that are shaping our society, so that our religious scholars can address issues of relevance in the language and at a level that's required for their voice to be meaningful and to contribute to the overall discourse surrounding religious, social, cultural events here in this country.
Right. Okay. So
I'll give you an
go
example. How many really high-level scholars come from overseas? I mean, PhDs and then studied 20, 30 years with the highest mashayikh in their land. And we have them here.
Yeah. It's a handful.
And they're, let's say even if there were more than a handful, they're absolutely irrelevant in terms of affecting popular, social, cultural, political, religious discourse here in this country. Irrelevant.
Yeah, for sure.
So we need people that attain a high level here, but also are studying and growing and understanding with the generation they're going to be serving.
And I think this is the urf component that you're referring to, that they need to know the customs.
Absolutely. Al-adatu muhakkama. So
what does that mean?
Custom, convention, urf has legal consideration, legal weight. And so they know, like, this is acceptable urf. So we shouldn't be beating our young people up because, they're dressed like you're dressed. Or just modestly, a little looser, so the biceps aren't as
I'm
visible.
sorry.
Now you're still trying to get that wife. So it's
it's
sister, which way?
You know what it is? Well, it's the layers that make it look tighter.
I know, alhamdulillah.
Because I'm in New Haven.
Yeah, I'm just kidding you. But there's nothing. We should have Western dress, but it conforms to our Islamic standards of modesty. So you don't necessarily, and probably shouldn't, it will be inappropriate for you to be running around in your daily life in a jalabiya or in a thobe or a shawwal khamis or some other, or Kurdish baggy pants with a big wide waist wrapper.
But if I do wear that, do I get barakah, Sheikh? Do I get some sort of hasanat?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Not at all?
Unfortunately.
Even if I wear the kufi and the
turban?
turban?
You might on ceremonial occasions or occasionally for Eid wear the dress of whatever your parents' land is. There's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of what should be the norm for us and what should we find condemnable, we have to be very keen to understanding what's going on in our culture.
Okay, so you
like
need
this. See,
go ahead.
this is long, but this is totally Western.
Yeah, you're wearing a
Western
suit
collar.
today.
It's a suit, but look how long it is. It's very modest. Inshallah.
Yeah,
It's
this is an
not
overcoat.
form-fitting.
Yeah.
It's a thin coat. It's not an overcoat.
Okay.
A Chinese collar. It's
Uh-huh.
Chinese, so we're blending the cultures. But in a way, if I walk down the street, someone might say, "Man, where could I get one of those?"
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Okay.